Hey there, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I am diving into tips, tools, and strategies in terms of how to help your little one learn to talk. And I'm super excited because I am joined by two amazing speech therapists, Brooke and Bridget from the Speech Sisters, and they're answering your most common questions that have come in from previous videos that I've done on language development. So if you have questions about your child's development or you're looking for awesome resources, you're definitely gonna wanna check this video out. Hello guys. Today I am so excited to be joined by Bridget and Brooke from the Speech Sisters, and we're all in for a treat because I know that I get a lot of questions from you guys regarding your little one's language development. So I am so happy to have these beauties here. How are you guys doing today?
We're great. Thank you for having us.
Of course, I'm so happy you're here. So before we get into I have a few questions that I pulled that are just like commonly asked questions from my subscribers. But before we dive into those, will you guys give a quick introduction? Say who you are, what you guys do, how you got into this, all the good stuff.
Sure, absolutely. So we really are sisters. We're speech and language pathologists, both of us. And we are moms. I have 3 kids.
I have 2. I'm Bridget.
And I'm Brooke. And we live in Southern California, and we opened a private practice about 10 years ago. And so we've been running that and doing that. And about a year and a half ago, we just wanted to do something different. We wanted to try to reach more families. So we started an Instagram platform where we share tips and tricks, specifically and mostly on how to get toddlers talking. So we specialize in early intervention and working with late talkers. And what we realized in doing this for many, many years is really just how important the parent piece is. And so much of what we do is parent education and getting the parents involved. And we thought, we should reach more parents because this is so important. And like, how can we do that? And so we started our Instagram and we developed 2 online courses.
Yeah. Between like the 2 of us, we have 5 kids across the board. Like they were all pretty early communicators and talkers. And we just got asked so often, like, how did you do that? Oh, it's because you're a speech therapist. And yes, of course that played into it. But we would always say to them, you know what? We think that you are capable of the same thing. We just speak and interact with our child with the intent of building their language. And we really think it's something that most parents are capable of as well. So that's our mission, is just to empower parents in the role that they can have on their child's communication development.
I love that. It's so important. And, it sounds very much like our missions are aligned. It's like reach more people, because when you are in private practice, it's like, here's your local community, and that's great. There's a lot of people who don't have access to this information, who are dying to get it. And so I'm just super excited. I've done a couple of language videos with Kai, but I'm so excited to actually have a speech language pathologist too here with me to answer these questions, because I get a lot of questions and it's like, I'm an OT, we dabble a bit here, we all kind of work together, but let's go straight to the source. So I'm super excited to have you guys here.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So the first question, that's a common question that comes up, is what are some reasons my kiddo is not yet speaking?
It's variable.
Yeah, it's such a good question. Every parent wants to know. Sometimes there's something going on with a child, so there could be some sort of delay, and these can happen for all different reasons. And so oftentimes when a child is not meeting the communication milestones, especially receptive language milestones, that's the understanding piece. That's something we always ask that first, because that kind of is an indicator as to whether or not it's more of a global delay, or are they just late to talk. So that's a big thing. And then if they are kind of just late to talk, if they understand language and they're cruising along but they're just a little bit behind, sometimes it can just be their environment. Maybe parents maybe they're talking too much and too fast, and that's not what that child needs. Maybe the child needs a little bit more like the language simplified, and other kids can do fine when parents are talking quickly, but not all the time.
And I think another thing is sometimes parents, like, they anticipate their child's every need. So they know their child wants water, and they're like, oh, here are your Cheerios, here's your water. And you just hand it over, and we don't set up a communication opportunity for them.
That is such a great point. I was actually watching your stories and it's like, it is, you have to have that intentional delay, right? To give them a chance to process. And then, and even as I mean, you guys may feel the same way as an OT, it's a skill you have to learn because you do, especially as a mom, want to jump in and just help them. We don't let them have the moment to, process.
And sometimes we don't have time,
Yes.
as moms, especially, a mom of multiple children or a working mom, like we are always on the go.
Yes.
Life is a rush. I mean, in today's day and age, and it's hard to do that wait piece.
It is
so important. And so we always tell our families, like, when you can, just wait, just here and there, just pick some times throughout the day. But that is such a big part of it. And then another thing too, with delays and why a child might have delays, sometimes with the OT, this is more the motor piece, right? So sometimes children can have some oral motor weakness, and so that can play into it as well. And with that, we typically, the language will come, but it might not sound super clear, and the articulation is more impaired. And then there's, autism, apraxia of speech, which is more of a brain thing.
So many different things, but I think it's great because for most kids, like you're saying, it's the piece of like maybe the environment or just getting the opportunity set up properly for your kiddo. Yeah. And and you would know typically if you're doing like solid, say 6, 7, 8, 9 months, if there is oral motor weakness, then it'd be easier to connect the two than when your kiddo is going to start making words or whatever else. So then the work can be done. So
absolutely. Yeah. And that's kind of our mission, is like to get parents to be a little more proactive. And that's why we try to start them early. It's like, oh, your child's 6 months, you can do these things and babble with them and get them to babble back and try to start strengthening those articulators and building language from an early age, because sometimes those, obstacles and problems can be avoided.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. So then going into this, this is a question I have, and I've been asked a couple of times, but as an OT going in and doing like the developmental evaluations and stuff, I want to ask you guys, so if you have multiple languages spoken in the home, can that delay expressive language because you have kiddos trying to figure out and sort 2 different languages, or is research showing it doesn't really make a difference?
This is probably our most commonly asked question.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Everybody wants to know this, and it's a great question.
Yes. And the research shows that it does not cause a language delay, and to go for it. And we always encourage parents, if you're going to expose your child to 2 or more languages, that is an amazing gift to give them. And no, it will not cause a language delay. If your child is going to have a language delay, then you may see it, but it's not going to be the reason that causes it. However, I think it's important to let parents know that expressive language or talking may be it may lag a little bit behind, but that does not mean that the child should not meet the milestone. They should always meet that milestone. So that milestone indicates what approximately 90% or most children should be able to achieve at a certain age. If a child is bilingual, they should still be meeting that milestone. It's just, if you're counting words, it may be a combination of words in Spanish and words in English.
Got it.
So that's the main thing. But we always encourage.
Yeah, we always say go for it, and it really is a gift that you can give your child. And like Bridget said, I mean, sometimes it will lag a little, and that's when parents get real nervous, like, oh, I gotta stop. And it's like, no, just it's okay.
It's okay. Keep going.
You're processing 2 languages.
Yes.
It's gonna take a little bit longer for it to come out, but it almost always does.
Okay, that's so good to know, because I mean, there is the processing, right? They're hearing 2 different languages and they're sorting it out, but it's good to hear. It's like, of course it's a gift. 2 parents, 2 different languages, like that's huge for your kiddo to be bilingual at such a young age. So awesome with the encouragement. That's funny that that's your most common question too. So
we have 2 blogs on this.
Oh, you do?
And lots of information on Instagram too.
Oh, good. Okay. So then, if you guys are interested, we will link them below in the description box, so you guys have access to some of these goodies that we're talking about here. And then this has got to be like one of the top 3 questions you get asked too, but what are some simple but effective things I can be doing at home with my kiddo to promote speech? And I know we've talked about a couple of things like setting up the environment and giving them the opportunity and waiting, but if you have any other tips things that work really well for parents to incorporate?
I think, we have, and this is why we kind of created two different courses, because it's like a little bit different what you're going to do with your babies versus your toddlers. So for babies, a few pointers that we have, and these are some of the pointers included in our Talk on Track course. The first one is how you speak to your baby. So using what we call a parent ease voice, which is also known as motherese, infant directed speech, and even sometimes baby talk, the good kind of baby talk. And it actually, research shows that it can be beneficial to your baby. And we always encourage doing this with your baby. It doesn't have to be the only way that you talk with them, but to definitely do this at home when you're highlighting words or talking to your baby or saying, I see your nose, and you're going up with that high pitched sing-songy voice, because that kind of voice, that parent ease voice, will grab your baby's attention. And when you grab their attention, more language learning can occur.
Makes total sense.
That's a big one. Another one that we talk about when they're babies, but also through the toddler years, is talking to them. And it sounds so simple and obvious, and maybe it is, but it's the way in which you talk. So we talk about two different types of talk. So parallel talk and self-talk. And so you want to script out what you're doing, and you want to script out what your baby's doing. You want to talk them through everything that's going on during the day, and you want to kind of keep it simple. You don't want to talk too fast. You don't want to talk, speak in paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs, because it's going to go over their head.
Yeah.
So using maybe this parent-ease voice when you can, and talking through what you're doing, Ma, I'm pouring my coffee. Pour. There goes the coffee. Pour. This is what I'm doing. The baby's learning, picking up words,
and repeating those words.
Yes.
Those words. I think too, for parents of younger babies, we developed this coined a term called the noisy steps. And it's basically a staircase, and it has cooing into babbling. And the next step is those sounds, and then into first words. And it's helping parents understand that there is a hierarchy, and your child should be hitting all of these milestones, because going through this process is what will get them into saying their first words. So we kind of help parents with that. And one of the most important pieces to help them climb up those noisy steps is imitating them, or even modeling for them. So we always say babble, babble back. And so when your child babbles, maybe they're saying, mama, ma. You want to jump in there and go right back at them, mama. And you could point it yourself to add a little meaning, mama, and babble back, because they love that. They think that's so cool, and it keeps that interaction going.
I love that. Yeah. And it just reminds me of how interconnected all of these categories of development are. Like the social emotional aspect is definitely so closely linked with language, right? Like our expressive face, our smiles, our everything. It really promotes language and the bonding and the engagement. I'm going to just a little tale, because now I'm thinking about this. I don't know if you guys get questions, because, I've had a couple of parents say, like, with the pandemic and now wearing masks and limiting, the facial expressions and just movement of the lips and everything else, like, how's that? We don't really know, but I imagine it does have a direct impact in terms of language development, both receptive and expressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, a huge part of babies learning and toddlers learning, and even school age kids learning how to articulate perfectly, it's so much of it is visual. So you have the auditory component, but so much of it is visual into the masks. And we have a blog on this too that we can link
perfect.
But it will have an impact. There aren't many studies on it yet.
Yes.
There are a few that were done in China, I think, years ago. But
But it can have an impact. I mean, there's been research studies on, doctors or surgeons,
Yes.
and how their communication is impacted during surgery and during that experience. And a lot of people feel as though, the affect is not interpreted as easily. You can't hear somebody, maybe mumbly. You have to ask for repetition, and that's hard sometimes for our little ones. So it's definitely a bit of a concern, but we came up with, I forget the number, but I want to say it's like 8 tips on how to improve communication while wearing a mask.
Yes. That's amazing because that's so helpful. I mean, obviously with parents, it's different. You're likely not wearing a mask with your baby or toddler, but if you do have a grandparent come visit, you know, and they want to be safe and like, that's just such a beautiful thing to, oh, I'm so excited. So we're going to have all these resources listed in the description box. So that's awesome. Thank you for that. And then this last question, this is more of my question. Kai, he was a pretty early talker as well, but I notice, and this is my first kiddo, and I'm like, oh, interesting, like the consonants, right? So mixing L with W, or okay, so this is the funniest thing. He couldn't say sparkling because we drink sparkling water, and he would mix his S. He would swap the S for an F. So it sounded like an explicitive constantly when he was trying to say sparkling water, and it was the funniest thing ever. And eventually he got his S sound, and he's pretty much got them all in place. Every once in a while I'll hear the L and the W flip. So just for our mamas of kiddos who have a little bit older, you know, 4 or 5 years old, when do you typically see them work all of the consonants out so they match the sounds?
Great question. This is also kind of on a continuum. So there are certain sounds that should be acquired by certain ages. So earlier developing sounds versus later developing sounds. Those earlier developing sounds happen typically, well, most of the time with little ones. If you think about babbling, it's ma, 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 ba, 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 ba. They're bilabial sounds, so they're happening with the lips. They're the easiest to produce. So those happen earlier. And then as you move kind of up and get a little bit older, kids will develop more of those more difficult sounds, these back sounds, K and G. These are back here. What you're describing, L and R, those are even later developing sounds, and they are tricky. And but they do come in. I mean, R is one of the latest sounds to develop. When you were saying like W for L or W for R, so this is what we call a phonological processing, and it's very, that's the technical term, but basically children go through these speech sound errors, and they are completely normal, and it is basically their way of figuring out how to move their articulators to make this sound. So we expect that children will have these, but we also expect that they will go away on their own by certain ages.
Right.
And when they don't, that is when a speech therapist should come in and do some remediation. But what you're describing is a very classic error that we see all the time, and that's a later, that one will go away. I don't know, even five.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Okay, good.
So,
You've got some time.
Our parents come to us like, my 3-year-old can't say R. Help! And I'm like, no, because developmentally they don't have to. They should be able to. Yes. If they can, that's like, whoa.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's good to know, because even still, like, obviously, same thing. We both were in early intervention, so 0 to 3, and then you get outside of that, and you're like, yeah. You start hearing these things, and you're like, is that? So that's good to know. All these things eventually will work themselves out, and
if they don't by that age of elimination where they should be mastered, that's go time.
Absolutely.
Without a therapist.
Seek the therapist, seek the help. Absolutely. Advocate always for that. So you guys are so amazing. This was so fun, and it's so helpful. And I know that a lot of the parents that watch are just going to be so excited to get some concrete answers from SLPs. So thank you for taking the time. And before we go, I want you guys to tell our viewers where they can find you. Bridget and Brooke are very humble. They've been on Good Morning America. They are killing the game on social media. They're amazing. So this is a really wonderful resource to take advantage of. And then I'm going to go ahead and list a bunch of stuff in the description box, but share with our subscribers where they can find you, where they can work with you, all the good stuff.
So you can find us on Instagram at Speech Sisters, or you can go to our website. We have lots of blogs there at speechsisters.com. And then on Speech Sisters, we have lots of, like I was saying, blogs and free resources, milestone checklists, that's free, a free PDF on 5 things to stop doing to get your child to start talking. And then we have our 2 courses, Talk on Track, which is our course for parents of newborns through 14 months. to kind of be proactive and get your child meeting communication milestones. And then we have our later course called The Late Talker, which we actually think we're going to be renaming soon, because when we wrote it, we were like, well, this course will be for late talkers, but we have had so many families take it, and just to kind of give their child a boost and be proactive, and it's worked amazing. So really, it's more like the talkative toddler. Just,
That's
if you're ready to
awesome.
get your toddler talking, it's a great course for 15 to 36-month-old to get them talking and growing their vocabulary.
That is amazing. I'm so excited. Thank you guys again for being here. It's such a treat. I've learned so much. And yeah, if people start asking more questions, maybe we could do it again in the future, bring you guys back. So yay.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Bye.